Welcome in to this episode of the Worship Band Builder podcast, where we are working with you to lay the foundation for skillful worship. Today, we're talking about wisdom and leadership and seeking godly counsel for long-term success. And I'm going to start this with a short monologue story called The Lonely Road of Pride. It was supposed to be the peak of his ministry, the moment when everything came together. Josh was a talented worship leader, gifted with a voice that could draw people into the presence of God, and a heart of passion for leading others in worship. But there was one thing that Josh couldn't see, one flaw that was hidden beneath the surface of his confidence, and that was pride. He had started off humbly enough, leading a small group at his local church, always seeking advice from his pastor and other leaders. But as ministry grew, the congregation swelled, so did his confidence. Soon Josh was leading worship for hundreds every Sunday, and with that growth came a subtle shift. He began to believe he was meant to walk this path alone, that he didn't need anyone else's input. He had the talent, the vision, the calling. What more did he need? People around him noticed. His wife gently suggested he might need some help managing the growing demands of his role. His pastor offered to connect with him to a network of experienced worship leaders. His friends saw the strain on his face and urged him to slow down. But Josh was resolute. He brushed off their concerns, thinking to himself, they don't understand what it's like. This is my ministry, my calling. I know what I'm doing. Months passed, and the demands of ministry grow heavier and heavier. Josh worked tirelessly, pouring every ounce of his energy into planning services, leading rehearsals, coordinating with the tech team, but cracks began to show. His creativity started to wane. Where once his worship sets were inspired and fresh, they now felt routine and empty. He grew irritable, snapping at band members, isolating himself from the very people he was supposed to lead. Then came the fateful Sunday. It was supposed to be a special service, one that Josh had been planning for weeks. He stayed up late every night, refusing to delegate any responsibility. He was determined to prove everyone, and maybe himself, that he could do this on his own. But as he stood on stage that morning, looking out at the expectant faces in the congregation, he felt something he'd never felt before. He felt emptiness. He opened his mouth to sing, but words felt hollow. The music started, but instead of harmony, he envisioned the harmony wasn't there. There was chaos. The band was off. The tech team struggled with glitches, and Josh's voice cracked. In a moment of panic, he realized he had lost the room. He had lost the presence of God. After the service, he retreated to his office, his heart heavy with the weight of failure. For the first time, he felt the crushing loneliness of leadership. In that quiet room, he broke down. He had given everything he had, and it still wasn't enough. It was in that moment, when he had nothing left, that he remembered the words from Proverbs 11:14, where no counsel is, the people fail, but in the multitude of counselors there is safety. It hit him like a wave. He had been trying to be an island, a lone ranger in ministry that was never meant to be carried alone. Josh thought back to the voices he had ignored, his wife, his pastor, his friends. They had seen what he couldn't see, that he needed help, that he needed wise counsel around him. He realized now that his pride had built a wall between him and the very people God had placed in his life to guide him. In his desire to prove himself, he isolated himself, and now he paid the price. In the weeks that followed, Josh began to change. He sought out the counsel he had once rejected. He asked for forgiveness from those he had pushed away. He started meeting regularly with his pastor and reached out to other worship leaders, admitting he didn't have all the answers. It wasn't easy. Humbling himself felt like tearing down the walls of a fortress he had spent years building. But slowly, he began to see the fruits of this change. His ministry didn't magically become perfect. There were still challenges, still moments of doubt. But now, he wasn't facing them alone. He had a multitude of counselors, a network of support that lifted him up, encouraging him and guiding him. Looking back, Josh realized something profound. The failure, the breakdown, the emptiness. It could have been avoided. He could have saved himself the pain and suffering if he had only listened, if he had only opened his heart to wisdom of others. He learned that being a leader wasn't about having all the answers, but being willing to seek them. And so he became a different kind of leader, one who knew the value of counsel, one who understood the success in ministry isn't about standing on stage alone, but about standing with a community of wise, godly people who are willing to walk aside you in the journey. Because in the end, no man is an island, and in the multitude of counselors, there is safety. Today, we are talking about no man is an island, the need for community, and really the most important, Proverbs 11:14, where no counsel is, the people fall, but in the multitude of counselors, there is safety. Did you know that my channel statistics show that only about half of you watching right now are subscribed to the channel? If you're enjoying these sessions, please take a moment, hit the subscribe button. If you do that, I promise I'll work hard to make this channel bigger and better with every single episode. And just one more thing. There are over 1,000 video tutorials on the new Worship the King platform that cover everything from guitar, drums, bass, vocals, live stream mixing, audio tech, and more. Through the Worship Band Builder and Propel Mentorship Program, we can work together and take your church to the next level in worship and tech. To learn more, go to worshiptheking.com and click apply. We are here thinking about our leadership, and maybe that story, even for me, it kind of opened up my mind to wow. And that was a fictional story, but one that is really true, I believe, in ministry all over the world, and especially here in the United States, where we just want to make things happen. I've been there. I've been that guy who I have a lot of the answers. I have a lot of the talent to do this. I have a lot of the skill set that's needed. And I've done this on my own. I've been worn out. I have broken down personally after services. I have been there, and it's terrible. But we are pushing through, trying to do everything, trying to live up underneath our pastor's expectations, our family's expectations. We're trying to really get crushed under technical difficulties, and it really is hard. And God designed us to thrive in community, and seeking counsel is a sign of wisdom. It's not weakness. So I want to encourage you today to identify and reach out to trusted mentors, fellow leaders, counselors for guidance and support. We're going to talk more about this, but if you think back in your life, who are you talking to as wise counsel? How big is that network? It really does matter what that network looks like for you. If it's just a few of your friends from college or high school, or if it's older men. And for me, I'll share, when I was younger, I was mentored by a worship leader in my church, about 20 years older than me. And I was young, and he came to me and said, "Can I mentor you?" And I said, yeah, I want to do this. And I was leading worship. I was in the youth group leading worship for the big church already. I had kind of moved up. And he said he saw my talent, said he was the band leader and I was just the younger worship leader. And it was through a few guys that were in their 10 to 20 years older than me. I was being mentored by the pastor as well during that whole thing. And I want you guys to listen to this story from the Bible. It is very clearly going to drive home this point about how important it is to have the right kind of mentors, the right kind of counsel in your life. Listen to the story.
This is the story of Rehoboam. Rehoboam was the son of Solomon, who was the wisest man who ever lived. When Solomon died, Rehoboam was supposed to take his place as king, and he went to talk to all the people. The people said to him, "We need a lighter workload. We loved your dad, but he was pretty hard on us. So if you can lighten the load, maybe ease up on the taxes a little bit, we will serve you loyally." He says, "Give me 3 days. Let me think about it." He goes to his dad's counselors. He goes to the men who consulted with the wisest man in the world, and he asks them, "What do you think I should do?" They told him, "If you will serve the people today by giving them what they're asking you for, they will be your servants, your loyal servants, ever after." Rehoboam takes this in and says, I don't know. Let me go ask my friends. So he goes to the guys that he grew up with, and he says, "The people want me to lighten the workload. What do you think I should do?" they say to him, "I'll tell you what I would do. I'd tell him, 'You think my father was tough? You haven't seen anything. My pinky is thicker than my father's waist. He whipped you with whips. I will whip you with scorpions.'" That's what Rehoboam did. He took the advice of his young friends, and he lost the entire kingdom, other than the city of Jerusalem and Judah, who reluctantly followed him. But the rest of the country rejected him and got another king. And that's the story of Rehoboam.
Okay, so let's talk about embracing help for growth, humility in leadership. Humility for a worship leader, it's probably hard, and it can be hard for us as musicians to be humble. But I find that in my ministry and in the time around others that being humble is an extremely, extremely important trait. And I think that we all, as musicians and worship leaders, we really do have something to prove. We're trying to prove something. We're trying to do something. We're trying to make something happen. And if we're not really focused on the main thing, which is Christ and serving Him, then we can really fall into this performance-based reality of like, oh, I'm so great at this. Oftentimes when I stood on stage as a young worship leader, I realized because of my conversion story that there was really no reason for me to be on that stage. The only reason I could ever stand on that stage was because Christ had saved my life. And I think that grounded me for many, many years. And I'm kind of reflecting on my path and how I've been going. And for many, many years, just standing on that stage felt like a privilege. Like I didn't deserve it. But somewhere along the road, I think I did think maybe I deserve this, or somewhere along the line, I probably thought I'm great at this. And those are the times when I think I experienced the most burnout. So you don't have to downplay your own gifts, but you have to recognize that you have the need for growth and you have the need for support. And that's exactly what you have to do. So let's talk about some strategies for developing a humble heart. And this would be such as regular self-reflection, prayer. You know, go back to your origin story. For me, it was always going back to the 11th grade when I was basically suicidal and on drugs, and I was just at the bottom. And God took me up on a hill with a friend, and I read that prayer, and I opened my eyes. Things were different. I could always go back to that moment, and I could understand that you don't really deserve this. It's not about you. And you can also seek feedback from others. If you don't have such a drastic story, something that grounds you, maybe work that into your prayer life, try to find that grounding or that place that you can go back to and go like, when did God really call me to lead worship? How did I get here? And just go back and reflect on those things, seeing that you probably didn't get there because you're just so awesome. It is kind of like when you look at how Satan, he thought he was so great, and he tried to overthrow God. He wanted to be God, and he was one of the chief worshipers, in the beginning. So worship seems to have that sort of vibe floating around it. Like, everybody wants to get on stage. Everybody wants to lead a song. Everybody wants to be up front. Everybody get the lights. And, in the last 20 years, it's changed a lot from, song leader, basically just singing in a church to like dark, lights on you, fog. Like some of the churches I used to play, the bigger mega churches had big screens on the back, and you looked up and there's your face, and you're like, you're just a rock star, man. That's such a cool thing to do. It's like, that's always what I wanted to do when I was a kid, is be a rock star. So are we living out that life of, like rock and roll and just being cool and like all this technology and all these people serving us and the sound guys and all the tech teams all like, okay, 3, 2, 1, you're on, flashlights, you're amazing. This is a problem if we let it be that, if our grounding is not really, really grounded. And so I would say actively seeking feedback from others. That is a huge thing you can do. If somebody goes, hey man, you're acting a little, you're acting a little like, you own the place. You need to take these things to heart and be seeking counsel. You have to have those people around you, because building a network of counselors can ensure safety and success, and it can be for the short term and the long term. So what does it mean to have a multitude of counselors in context of worship ministry? And I think that these can include mentors, pastors, other worship leaders, and even mental health professionals, psychologists, things like that. People that can, and I've had a psychologist a few times. I've been in some like recovery groups, and those things help. Just being real, just being able to go and say like, I feel this way. What am I doing? But the biggest sort of powerful, most sustaining group of mentors has been my closest friends who are in ministry. They've been my pastors that have been around me, like the team, and maybe not as much the pastor, but like the people that are within the ministry. Like one of my churches, it was the drummer. He was older, much older, and sort of just kind of took me under his wing. Even though I was the full-time staff pastor, worship leader, he was like, one of the deacons, and he was a drummer. And it was like, I felt like I could talk to him, and he would say, hey man, what's going on with this? What's going on with that? I'm able to go to him and say, hey, I'm having trouble with this audition, with this family, or with this person. How do I navigate this? And he's like, here, try this. These are important people. I actually think that it is almost always better to have your mentor be older than you, to have them be somebody who has been through. And it's just reminds me of how I used to, as a young Christian at 17, I would sit at my grandfather's feet. I would sit on the floor right in front of his chair, and I would or sit next to him, and I would just talk to him. He was a pastor, and he was my grandfather, and I would just ask him questions like, what about this and what about that? And I wanted to see what he was going to say. I wanted to see how he was going to deal with those things, because then I'm like, okay. And throughout my life, it's been like my father-in-law or my grandfather or my worship mentors who were 20 years my senior. Those are the people who, when I'm feeling really tight, when I'm feeling squeezed, when I'm feeling trash, through something, I'm going to call them. I'm going to text them. I'm going to say, hey, what is this? Maybe it is a peer. So recently I found some peers. They're more my age, but they're also in ministry, and I can see they're wise. They're successful. They're wise. They're successful. So you're going to look for those kind of people to do ministry with, to help to be a mentor, to have counselors. So you need to maintain this trusted counselors. You need to have accountability, maybe have regular check-ins, maybe and be open to receive encouragement and criticism. This is extremely important. If you have to be able to take criticism, and you have to be open to it. So you have to build up your confidence through Christ, through worship leading, through your talent, through things you do. Your confidence is key for you. You're on stage and you're leading, but you also have to be able to take criticism and take it from the people that matter, the people who can tell it to you in a good way. And that's how a well-maintained support system can contribute to your long-term success, okay? They're going to help you avoid burnout. They're going to help you grow spiritually, and they're going to help you lead more effectively. It's like, iron sharpens iron. You have to have these people. If you don't have these people, if you can't right now go on a piece of paper and write down one, two, maybe three people in your life right now, and it can just be two. It could be one or two. One is a good start. Two is better. Three would be great. People that that you can talk to. You don't want to be an island. You don't want to be alone, especially in leadership where you are taking on a huge role to be able to lead worship and lead people. This is an important role as a pastor or leader. You're standing up front. You have to have those people. So I want to encourage you today to take action. Write down one person that you can seek counsel from. And if you don't have them, start praying that God, give me this person, show me this person, and go find them. There's so many people in your church right now that really could probably mentor you. Maybe it's just a retired pastor. Maybe it's just a grandpa in the church who's just really smart. Maybe he runs a company. Maybe he's a CEO, or he's been a CEO and he's been in upper leadership. You need high-level leaders to follow. You need them to speak into your life and be willing to actually do that. And the other thing I can say is, Worship the King has a really great community. You can go to worshiptheking.com and you can now click on Join Now, and you can actually join Worship the King's community. We have a back end, sort of like a social app. It's extremely amazing that you can get on this app and you can talk to other worship leaders. We have the Propel Worship Leader Mentorship as well that you can can actually be mentored by our team here at Worship the King, and you can get a certification to become a certified worship leader through Church Answers. Now, these two things are really great because you're going to get instant feedback. You're going to grow. You're going to learn. You're going to gain your skills. And if you're feeling that you're not confident, that's what I think that's where this comes from. When we feel not confident or when we aren't equipped, then we become defensive, and then we become we're kind of like a fish outside of water. We're flopping around a lot, and it's embarrassing sometimes. So then we kind of like shrink down and get smaller, and then we sort of lash out. And then when we have a great Sunday, we kind of take credit for it. Like, I did it. Like, what are we trying to prove? What are you trying to prove to the people, the community, the pastor? Why are we doing that? Why aren't we just saying, no, I want to go in, I want to learn more, I want to have a mentor, I want to get somebody to help me, I want to grow my skill level. I think that's probably the one of those most important things is you're gaining your success, is you're surrounding yourself with these mentors, with wise counsel, and you're also gaining greater, deeper skills for the craft. I had a friend, one of my mentors, back when I was younger, and it stuck with me always through these years. I mean, I was just a little older than a teenager. He was my Sunday school teacher, also one of our youth workers, and also was on the worship team. And he would always say, you're called to be a worship leader. And that was obvious to the people around me. That was obvious to me and to my people. I was called to be a worship leader. I was gifted to be a worship leader. And he would say to me, you're either going to be leading worship or preparing yourself to lead worship. It was very interesting because it stuck with me all the time. Be doing what you're supposed to be doing, or be preparing to do what you know you're supposed to be doing. And it kind of stuck with me. And I think that's really important. So in order to do that, you have to be able to have people speaking into you, men and women that are your senior, that have been there, that have done it. And this is in no way a marketing promotion for like the mentorship or Worship the King platform, but we're there for you. It won't be the only thing you need. You need mentors in your local life. You need people, spiritual mentors and all that. But we do have the training. We do have tools that will help you gain greater skills so that you don't feel burned out, overwhelmed. You can build a good team around you. You can build mentors around you at your church, and you can have success, because that's what it is. Success is within reach. That's something I always say, and that's what I'm saying to you today. So think about these things today. If you like this, make sure you like the channel, subscribe to the channel. And if you like this sort of simple talking format of podcast, another little test podcast trial thing I'm doing, I'm just doing some different types of podcasts. Let me know in the comments. It would be great. And I'll see you on the next episode.